Everyone, this is a video to show you how to deep clean the grinder. I'm going to be using the Canal House grinder, but obviously it's the same grinder at both sites, just that the equipment might change slightly, but everything inside this grinder is the same and the procedure is the same. So down here we have the bits and pieces to do maintenance on the grinder and the coffee machine, and we'll see what we need. So this is basically what we need. We've got a crosshead screwdriver here to take these first 4 screws out. Got a flathead screwdriver to take the screws inside of this. Got a brush to clean it all out, brush inside, and we've got a cup to store all the screws. So don't put screws like on the side or anything, just pop them in a cup so they all stay together nice and safe. It's important that this cup is dry. We don't want any moisture getting onto the screws and into the grinder. Moisture is bad for the grinder. So the first thing we're going to do is that we need to empty this chamber of beans. So we're going to stop the flow of beans from the hopper, which is done by doing that. And then we can grind through what's in here out into a paper bag. We'll keep it for Selena. She likes to have ground coffee, so pass that to Marta. And that will empty all this, and then that means we can take off the hopper. So we can unplug this heating element. This is the cable to the plug, and then we can take this front piece off. So we've got a bag, that sliders across. I'm just going to press the button and grind into this bag, and it's about 2 or 3 shots worth here. Just keep grinding until you're here. When it gets empty, the noise will change. It's difficult to do this with one hand. Hear the noise change, and that's about empty. So what that means is that this chamber's empty. We can take this off, and we can just pop this on the side. Obviously don't touch this because that will release the beans. And you can see inside, like I said, we've got this element plugs into here. And what that does is just keep that element at a particular temperature so that when our beans come through, all our beans come out at the same temperature. So we need to unplug that in order to be able to take this off. Okay, so that's unplugged. We should switch it off at this point as well, just to avoid any electric shocks. And then we're going to unscrew these 4 screws here. Okay, so last screw unscrewed, put that in there, and this is just going to all come off together. You can see there's usually a few beans, loose bits and pieces, so we're going to clear that up, and you can see some beans collected in there. So what we need to do next is remove this burr from here and this burr from here. You can see the screws are need a flat-headed screwdriver, so we're going to use those to remove those 6 screws. So I've removed all the screws now, and these just come off. And what we're going to do with this brush is just brush around everywhere, all of these burrs, and just remove any the loose ground coffee. Same in here as well. So just take this out and brush all that out. These are the same, by the way, they're identical, so it really doesn't matter which one goes where. We just need to clean them in the same way. So I've brushed that all clean. These burrs are both clean now. The final thing we need to do in terms of the screws and undoing them is this part here. So this faceplate can be unscrewed, and we're going to brush all this out through there as well. That's where some blockages can occur if we're not careful. Now the only difference between this machine and Derwent Drive is that instead of a cross-headed screw, we've got a hex bolt in here. So there's a separate tool at Derwent Drive, like an Allen key, an L-shaped Allen key that's designed to unscrew those. Okay, so I've unscrewed those. This comes off. You can see we've got some accumulation of ground coffee in there that we're just going to try and brush free. and get as clean as we can in there. Okay, and that piece of plastic here is called a clump crusher. Now we need to be careful that we don't damage this. It's a delicate piece of plastic. What it does is when the coffee gets ground through, it just breaks it all up, so it comes out in a nice stream. You'll soon realize if something's wrong with that clump crusher, because the coffee will come out in big clumps, hence the name. Okay, so that's about as clear as we can get it, and we just need to make sure that these pointy bits of plastic are directed downwards. If they're up like this, it's going to cause us problems. So just need to make sure they're pointing down. And then basically we're going to put all this back together in the reverse fashion. So first I'm going to screw this back on, then I'm going to screw the burr here and to the other side of here, and then we're going to screw this heating element back onto the front. So one important thing is that we've got the two burrs that are going to go on. One's going to go in here, so we just pop that back on there, align so the holes come through, and another one's going to go in there in the same way. Oh, sorry. But it's important to notice that the 6 screws are split into 2 groups. There's one slightly shorter than the other. So these shorter ones here are to go on the heater element burrs to be used there. These longer ones up here. So just take note of that. So all screwed in now. And we're gonna put this in here. Sorry, again, this is a bit difficult one-handed. And then this cable is going to come and plug into there. It's just important that that cable goes over the top of this white tab, okay? So just make sure of that. And then we're going to align that so we can screw this front heating element back on. Just a note on how tight to tighten these screws. You want to be nice and firm, but not use excessive force, otherwise it'll be very difficult to get them off next time. But it needs to be firm enough that this is not going to go anywhere. Especially important for this heating element. We don't want this to rattle around because it's going to do bad things to our grind when we're trying to adjust it. So then we pop our hopper back in there. We put our slider across. Make sure that the slider goes underneath this white tab. Sometimes it can get caught on that. You can see that the beans got released back into here. Switch it on is important as well. So this starts getting hot and our beans get to the temperature that we want, ready to use when we come back next week. So that's it really. That's the grinder deep cleaned, and we can check off that task on the Saturday list.